Hello. Welcome back. Another episode of Baseball Moms. So, I have no idea how we've done so many years and so many episodes and have never thought, you know what, we should talk about being the coach's wife, not just a baseball mom, but also being a coach's wife. Because any of you that might have been or still are a coach's wife knows that it adds a little special twist to it. Nothing quite like it, right? I always say that you have a couple different kinds. You've got the coach's wives that kind of sit off to the side, way away from everyone else. They either do that because they don't want to hear what everybody is saying, or because sometimes the other moms, dads, parents, maybe they just don't know how to act around them. For me, I was always in the thick of things. I was always sitting with everyone. And I think probably because I was never quite worried about people talking trash about my husband, not around me anyway. Anyone that knows my personality knows that probably would not have been a problem. I would have been A-okay to stand up for my husband. So I think that was always fine. I honestly think that Travis was pretty easy. Most people got along with him and there were never any issues. Every once in a while, we used to refer to it, some of us moms, as his willy-nilly positions. That would be when we might be up quite a bit, and it was in the younger days, and he would like to shift them around a bit. We referred to it as the willy-nillys. Actually, what was really funny is some of us moms, and it was the early days. I want to say the kids might have been, 6, 7, and we actually he started doing positions, and we decided that we were going to text him while he was on the field. We did not appreciate the positions. So, I was probably the hardest on him. So we never worried about too much of that, but that was all fun and games. I think in all seriousness, though, some of the hardest part that I think being coach's wife is that while everyone else goes home and at the end of a Sunday or end of practice, like you kind of talk about it in the car, you do your thing, and then you have family time and that's it. But it doesn't end for the coach's wife, the coach's family, that kind of stuff. It's always all week. I think the coach themselves, they're always thinking about it. They're always thinking on to the next game, on to things they need to tweak for practice, things for the next weekend, all of that stuff. So when you live that life, as you know, even as the baseball life, I think it's a little bit even more intense when you are the coach and then the coach's wife, because you're there to be a support system, not just for your kiddo, but as the coach's wife. So I think that it adds a different element to it. You're constantly kind of trying to put out those fires, being supportive, but also listening when they're trying to bounce ideas off you. You're also the one that sometimes is like, okay, we can't spend any more money. This is our own money. As you know, coaches volunteer for the most part. There are very few that are paid coaches. And so they are volunteering time, their money. And, at some point, you got to have someone that's like, okay, hey, we got to kind of reel this in. So I think that's a big part of it. And I think, too, that in my situation, I think that a lot of you, if you're watching this and you were the coach's wife or you still are the coach's wife, everyone's different. Personalities are different. The way people handle things are different. I would say for us, Travis is very laid back. He was always good about a lot of things. I think I took on a lot of the frustration for him. He would be like, well, I guess it is what it is. There was one season I remember where, the kids got a little bit older. The competition, we were playing pretty serious club ball and we had injuries, as you know. Kids were sick. Kids were out for whatever reason. And we would have games and we would have parents, little Tommy wants to go play at Sky Zone tonight. Huh? Like we have 9 kids. Come again? And I could tell he was frustrated, but he was so nice that he'd be like, well, I guess you got, and I'm thinking, you got to lay it down. You got to be like, look, you made a commitment. This is not just about you. This is a team. Or we'd have little Joey. Well, we're going to go ahead and go to CYC golf tonight. Huh? What? And you're thinking in your head, that puts a lot on the coach. Like he's got to figure out, well, do we forfeit? Do we play with 8? Do we, and it's so unfair to the coach, to the other players. And I know that they think, no big deal, who cares? But, that's a lot of pressure. And he was always so nice. Well, we'll figure it out. Okay, do what you got to do. Make that. I'm thinking, now most coaches probably would not have been that nice. And I was never that nice when I was like, why didn't you just say no or be like, but it's things that they're stressed about and then they're trying to figure out. And it's a constant thing. And, you're always the one that has to kind of be that support system. And it's a lot of behind the scenes. So those are things that I would say that it's 24/7. I think too, another thing that's hard being the coach's wife is that if your husband is coaching and you have kids that play on that team, it's that fine line of them being coach, them being dad, you being mom. You're trying to support the coach. You're trying to support your kid. You're trying to fit in with everybody. It's a tough role to play. And I think that there are so many life lessons and things that you don't realize. I think people think, well, when you have kids playing on the team, that those kids have an advantage. I think in a lot of times I've seen that happen, and I'm not going to say that that was never an advantage, because if you're being honest, of course, there are some advantages to that. But if you're being really honest, there are a lot of disadvantages to that as well. I think coaches, and if you're that coach's wife, they are going to be a little bit harder on their own kid. 1, because it just happens naturally. 2, because you don't want others to think, hey, they're giving special attention. And you also are in the stands as the coach's wife and as that mom, probably being harder on your kid while you're cheering louder for other people's kids. Same thing. You don't want to look like you're, trying to be super supportive of only one child, or that your husband, when he makes mistakes, of course, you're going to be the one crabbing the most at him at home. Why did you do that? Hey, I, want to win just like the rest of those parents. So, and, you got to remember that kid has to go home, and that kid lives in that house with that coach. And so do we. So we listen to it, or we hear over and over, I think I should have done this, or I think I should have done that, or maybe if I did this, or so on and so on. So it's not always easy being the coach's wife, or the coach who has kids on the team, or the mom of that. And I think, honestly, the hardest lesson I learned, and one of the things that has stood out to me the most now that Travis is not the coach, that was hard, is that I made great friends. And Travis coached for a long time. And he coached all 3 of our boys at some stage. Our oldest, and then our middle, and then Reed for the longest, and stayed his coach for a long time. And I think it was awesome because we made some incredible friends, and I've learned a lot of life lessons. But I think the hardest one that I learned the most is that, if I'm being honest, and I'm sure that some of you have seen this and some of you are going to learn this the hard way, is some of those friendships, as genuine as you think they are, you're going to learn that they're all not genuine. That many of those friendships that you think those people are your friends, it's because you are the coach's wife. That those people will be friendly to you. They will chat with you. They will hang out with you. They will invite you places. They will hang out, participate in things that you invite them to, because you are the coach's wife. And you will mistake that for genuine friendships you will genuinely believe that these people truly are your friend. And then one day, what will happen is you're going to find out that when those days are done and your husband no longer coaches and he is no longer the coach, that they no longer have a use for you. And that is a really hard lesson to learn, because if you are anything like me, you genuinely thought they were real friendships, and you will realize that when you have nothing left to offer them because your husband is not going to determine how much playtime their child gets, what position their child plays in, and you're not traveling any longer as a team with them, that they don't any longer have a use for you, and that it's not to their benefit to have to any longer pretend to be your friend. And some of those people you knew, you saw the writing on the wall. It wasn't anything that surprised you. The ones that are going to hurt the most are going to be the people that you least expected it to happen and that you truly believed were your family and friends. And when that happens, it will hurt. But I think that just like we tell our kids, in baseball, there are a lot of things and life lessons that you learn. Some are fun, some are great, and some are hard ones. And that is what the game is all about. And so the kids are not the only ones that learn these lessons. Us as parents are also ones that learn the lessons, some amazing, some are hard. What it has taught me is, as we've continued the journey and Travis is no longer a coach, I'm no longer the coach's wife. I'm just one of the moms. I've learned to be very genuine, to be mindful of those things. I've learned to also be very careful about who I accept in my circles outside of baseball, but in baseball as well. It helped me learn valuable lessons. And I have taken those on and I appreciated it. So I guess the moral of this episode is be careful. If you're starting this journey and it's new, just make sure that you're careful and cautious about who you include and how much you open up and open your friendship and your heart to. I'm not saying don't be kind and don't be friendly. Just be cautious. Just, be careful. And with that, I am going to remind you that always subscribe. Continue to drop ideas below if there are things, show ideas that you want to hear about. And we look forward to many more shows about different topics. And we will catch you next time.